Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. WowMax1 here, bringing another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we're going to be doing another Hydra showcase, this time featuring Titus Blackplume as our main damage dealer. One of my viewers requested that I put together a team using Titus in Hydra that did not feature any Infinity Shield compositions. No Wixwell, no Brogni, no Emic, no Blood Shield, none of that. So we were able to put together a team that did just over 400 million damage with Titus as the main damage dealer. Today I'll be breaking down how the team works, showing you key moments from the run, and finally going over the builds and replacements for the various champions in the compositions. With that, let's get into it. So it's no secret that Titus can put up some absolutely ridiculous numbers when it comes to Infinity Shield compositions. We're talking Demon Lord, Hydra, Chimera, billions of damage in all of them. But if you don't have the Wixwells, the Brognis, the Emics, the Blood Shield gimmicks, is he still useful? And the answer is yes. That's the whole point of today's video, is to put together a composition in a normal team without Infinity Shield where Titus can still be useful and you can take him out of your vault and he can still do something for your account. So in today's composition, we have Bivald as the primary enabler for Titus. Bivald puts up a shield based on the damage that he does with his A3. So his A3 deals more damage based on every debuff on all the targets in the encounter. So in this case, we have as many debuffs as we could throw together in a Hydra composition. So we have Firrol bringing block buffs, decrease accuracy, decrease speed. We have Mikage there to increase the duration of those debuffs, and to bring an ally attack, which helps with breaking champions out of being devoured. We have Hydra there bringing his weaken, his hex, spreading debuffs to targets with hex, increasing turn meter, and also bringing that A2 ally attack to help break champions out, and having additional synergy because that A2 also deals more damage based on how many debuffs are on the target. Lydia there, one of the best damage enablers in the entire game, putting up decreased defense and weaken, both crucial to get the most out of that A3 from Bivald. And then of course we have Titus there as our main damage dealer. And a nice bonus in this case is that both Bivald and Titus are two of the best provokers in the game. So making sure the Head of Decay is not going to be stripping off all those buffs that we're going to be putting on is going to be crucial. Bivald and Titus are going to help ensure that that is not going to happen. So just as a quick note before we get to the manual run, and this one was done on full manual, I will be doing a quick battle afterwards. And for those of you that are curious about the AI presets, there are no presets for this squad. I just left them as is with all their abilities. Nothing was preset. So with that, let's get to the run. All right, so here we go. This is a run I pre-recorded earlier, so I'm just going to be talking through this. It's going to be on 1.5 times speed, so we can just get to the key moments. So in the beginning, all I'm looking to do is set up as many debuffs as possible. Again, Bivald's A3 deals 5% more damage for each debuff on each enemy. There's no cap on that. So however many I can put, potentially up to 40 of them on the Hydra heads, that's going to be that much more damage for Bivald, for his A3. And the bigger the shield is, obviously the harder Titus's A2 is going to hit. So in the beginning, you just see me setting that up. Decreased defense, weaken, all of them are up there right now. Bivald is about to use his A3. Big shield goes on everybody, and Titus goes in with his A2, killing the Head of Mischief there, 2 million damage. So throughout this run, I think the highest that we can get on Titus's A2 is about 11 or 12 million, which we'll see towards the end of the run. It's all just dependent on the shield. So ideally what you want to do is use that A3 from Bivald when there's a couple of decapitated heads as they take more damage. So that's going to translate to a bigger shield and then eventually a bigger hit for Titus. Now, the way that I'm using Titus in this run specifically is I'm pretty much saving his A3 for Bivald. I want to make sure that he's getting to those Bivald's A3s whenever there's decapitated heads on, so that then I can make sure that Titus is getting his A2 off with a big shield. So you'll notice during a couple points in the run that I hold Titus's A2 just to make sure that I have a big shield on him. We do have a couple of buff extenders in Lady Mikage and in Mad Hatter, but for the most part, the shields are pretty much getting generated through those A3s. We're not really aiming to hold on to them forever once they're up, because those shields are going to get decreased in value because of the damage that the team is taking. So getting a refreshed shield, there we saw a hit for 8 million. That was, I think, the first big hit of the run right there. Yeah, again, the nice thing about this composition is it's not reliant on keeping Titus from getting devoured, unlike the Infinity Shield compositions where you lose your potentially 2 other shields and you can only grow your shield from skills at that point. Here you don't have to worry about that. If he gets devoured, no big deal. We just get him out, get another big shield on, and start doing more big hits. My highest crit damage champion in this composition is Bivald. I did want to still make sure that he got devoured first, and I wanted to make sure that he was dealing a respectable amount of damage so that he can be there as a secondary damage dealer and actually get my Titus and other champs out, especially if Titus has no shield. And, you know, if we're in a precarious spot, I wanted to make sure that Bivald actually does good damage. And we see another 5 million hit, splash damage, killing the other head there. And that's the other thing I'll mention at this point is Hex, so important for this composition. It is, I would say, the most important buff out of all of them for this specific run, just for damage reasons, because it helps you with control so much. Having that splash damage, having Titus do one big single target hit and then have that splash onto all the other heads, he's going to be obviously aiming to do that A2 onto decapitated heads for that extra damage. And yeah, it's just so nice. There you saw even his A1 dealing pretty decent damage because he's got good crit damage and high defense. Now, one thing that I did do on my Titus, which I have since found out is not the best move, is I did activate his blessing on him, even with a one-star awakening. And that's not something you should be doing because the way that his A2 damage is calculated, the more HP he has relative to his defense, the less damage it's going to do. So until you start getting to like your 4-star awakening, you could put it on him, but just don't activate it. One of my clan members pointed that out to me, and I have to say he's absolutely right on that. I have noticed a bit of a decrease in damage from Titus in some of my other testing after I put on the 1-star blessing, but it's really not as significant, and having that, especially in Infinity Shield compositions, having the 0.5% damage increase from each of the buffs on him does help offset that a little bit. So there we saw the first Devoured champion of the run. That was a Bivald getting devoured by the Head of Decay. Titus able to break him out no problem. I did notice later into the run, there were a few hairy moments when... I did notice later into the run, there were a couple of rough moments when it looked like I wasn't going to be able to break somebody out, but because this is a debuff heavy composition, Mad Hatter's A2 actually enables some really good damage. So whoever it is that's out there, either Titus or Bivald, they're going to be doing a lot of damage if there's a head up with, you know, almost a full bar of debuffs for his A2. And then Lady Mikage's A3, obviously a great help for that as well because of the ally attack. So between those two things, between having 2 damage dealers, between having 2 provokers in order to safeguard all of those debuffs, this is actually a pretty safe team. So that's one of the advantages of it. Obviously not going to be competing with any Infinity Shield compositions for damage, but the whole point of this was just to show that just because you don't have a Brogni or a Titus or, you know, a Wixwell or some kind of a blood shield gimmick, you can still use Titus. You don't have to put him in your vault. He is still going to be a good champion, regardless of whether you're going to be using, you know, just regular shields or Infinity Shields. You can still make him shine for your account. Here we are a little bit later into the run, and we're going to be getting to the point where Titus is going to be getting devoured. So he was the second champion to be targeted by Devour after Bivald. We're going to see a nice hit from him, 7.6 million, killing the Head of Mischief, which is nice. When he does get devoured, again, there's plenty of damage on the team between Bivald, Lady Mikage's A3, and Mad Hatter's A2 in order to break him out. So it's really not a concern at all. And again, we're not preserving any shields on him. They're just getting generated through Bivald's big, hard-hitting A3. So again, there's no concern with him getting devoured, but we're just going to watch as he gets devoured here in a moment. And then I think it's a Lady Mikage A3 that then, yep, there he goes. The Head of Blight has him. And we're going to be doing a little bit of damage. Actually, nice chunk of damage from Lydia's A1 there, and now we have the A3 from Lady Mikage, and easy breakout for Titus. And then as soon as we have the A3 back up and some setup, that's the other thing that I was trying to do throughout this run, is to make sure to set up Lydia's A2 before I try any A3s from Bivald, so that we get, again, the biggest shield possible. If the Head of Decay ever pops up, one of the nice things about having Titus and Bivald on the composition, they are two of the best provokers, as already mentioned, in the game right now. Titus can hit any head with his A2, and he's still going to be provoking the Head of Decay, and Bivald hits through bad affinities and hits on AoE, and can also provoke with a slightly lesser chance with his A1. So there's plenty of opportunity to control the Head of Decay and make sure that you're preserving all of those debuffs that you're going to be working on putting on all the heads. And then the nice thing about Lady Mikage is that she also extends those debuffs. So you really are in a pretty safe spot when it comes to having this kind of a heavy debuff composition. This particular team works really well for that. And we've jumped again in the run, way further this time, to a point where we're going to be seeing the biggest hit that I saw during the run. That's going to be Titus, obviously, coming in on one of the decapitated heads. So if you see here, we're about 50 turns left from the end of the run, and we've had no issue controlling. I think that it's been a little bit slower. If I were to rebuild this team, I probably would have had more turn meter fill somewhere, or maybe a speed aura. In this case, we were just using Bivald's aura for more damage for Bivald, but it also had the effect of decreasing Titus's damage, as I realized afterwards, because it's an HP aura. So a little bit unfortunate there. I think I may retackle this with, there we go, 11.8 million. That was the hardest hit, biggest hit during the run for today. But yeah, I think if I were to redo this one, my lead, I would have chosen Speed Aura, and yeah, I think that would have, just that alone, instead of the 28% ally HP, would have made quite a big difference for the run. But still, again, the whole point of this is to have a consistent team that can do good damage using Titus in Hydra, and for that, I think that this was a successful demonstration. All right, so now we're going to skip a little bit towards the last 5 turns, and then we'll get to the final score here. All right, last 5 turns here, and Titus just gets devoured a moment beforehand. When I saw this happen during the run, I thought, you know what, maybe I'm just going to go and hit the decapitated head and just try to get over 400 million. But then in the end, I decided to see if I could maybe break out Titus from the Head of Suffering there. Head of Suffering is the tankiest head, so it would have been a little bit tough to pull off. But let's look at the final damage numbers here. We have Bivald with 85 million, Titus with 185 million, and third spot there goes to Mad Hatter with just about 80 million. That's all coming from Hex splash damage. Bivald doing a respectable job of getting those big A3s on Titus, and Titus obviously carrying the composition with that A2 and the shields. So 1 hour for this run. There was a point in the run where I did have to step away for a moment, so there was a little bit of extra time there, but this is not something that I would personally do every week. I tend to lean more towards quick battles if I can pull it off, and that's exactly what we're going to do next. We're going to test this team on quick battle. All right, here we go. Let's see what we got on the quick battle. Now, I only had 2 left because I was doing some runs for another video that I'm going to be releasing later. So at some point, I'm gonna try out more quick battles on this one. But for now, I just wanted to see if it was still able to get to 1,000 turns and how much damage it was going to be. And here we see a little bit less on the damage, still similar kind of breakdown. Titus doing less damage, notably. Bivald only doing 7 million less than his total in the previous run, and Hatter the same, but significantly less damage on Titus with this because of the management of those A2s. So again, as I mentioned, I was making sure to hold those when I didn't have a big shield. I imagine that in this one, they may have gotten desynced, Bivald and Titus, and there wasn't there was occasionally A2s going out without big shields on him, which resulted in significantly less damage from him. But safe run, brutal Hydra, full auto, still over 333 million here, 1 billion clash points. You know, so if this is the option you have, if you have a Titus, if you have a shield champion, and you have, you know, everyone on this team is fairly accessible, with maybe the exception of Firrol there, who so we fusion, earnable on every account, fusion, earnable on every account, and then one champion that unfortunately is not earnable on every account. But again, Firrol, all he brings in this composition, well, all he brings, he is very good for bringing a slight damage boost, for bringing block buffs and perfect veil, but he is replaceable, and all the rest of these are more accessible to more people. So this is something you can easily pull off with your Titus if you're looking for a non-Infinity Shield Hydra full auto team. So for the first build in today's video, we have the star of the show, Titus Blackplume. We have him sitting in a 6-piece Merciless set. Here are the stats with Hydra bonuses. Now, the one thing that I mentioned earlier in the video already, I should not have put on my blessing on him. That does reduce the damage for his A2. So unless you have a 4-star blessing on your Titus, I would recommend holding off on activating it. Heaven Cast, while it does offset the damage loss from this a little bit, still not worth it in the end. For the Relic, I'm using a Cat's Gaze on him. Again, Heaven Cast as the blessing. And here are my masteries. Now, I do have a Titus Blackplume video out on my channel, Champ Guide, if you're curious and you'd like to see that. In terms of replacement champions, since the whole video is about Titus Blackplume, in this case, I'm not going to recommend that you replace him with anybody. Bringing the shields in today's video, we have Bivald of the Thorn. Now, I do have a Bivald guide on my channel. Traditionally on my account, I've used him more as a supportive provoker, but in this case, we want to build as much damage on him as possible to get that A3 to smack for the biggest possible shield for Titus. If you're looking for replacements for Bivald on this composition, anybody that can bring a gigantic shield or the biggest possible shield for Titus is going to be great. So I've seen Miscreated Monster being used. Valkyrie is also a good option. She brings a big shield, does good damage, and a good secondary damage dealer. Ideally, whoever you'd be bringing the shield with could also be doing some good damage. And if not, then you would probably have to have one of the other champions be a good secondary damage dealer. So you might have to do a little bit of swapping. But Bivald, very good. Miscreated, good. Valkyrie, good. All great options for shield for Titus that doesn't involve any shield growth. Now, in terms of the build, 6-piece Merciless. Stats in Hydra are the following. Using a Cat's Gaze Relic for the most ignore % defense. Cruelty Blessing, and here are the masteries. Now, I didn't bother spending the gems to change these up, but ideally, again, we'd go for as much ignore % defense as possible, so dropping the War Master for the Helm Smasher would be the best way to go. Next up on the team, we have Mad Hatter, who is our Hex Placer. Now, in terms of replacing Mad Hatter, since on Infinity Shield compositions, he's valued for his increased buff duration, in this team, you have the A3 from Bivald coming in periodically, and that's the new shield every time. So you don't need to carry the same shield out throughout the fight. So you don't have to worry about increased buff duration. So you can really replace Mad Hatter with anybody that you want that's going to be bringing a Hex. You could throw somebody in a Cursed set if you want to. I do value him for his turn meter boost and also for that ally attack A2, which does help break champions out of Devour. But you can bring a damage dealer instead if you want. You can bring somebody like a Tila Gormain, for example, if you ever sitting around in your vault, brings Hex, HP burn, that's more damage for the team there. While Mad Hatter is a great Hydra champion, by no means is he irreplaceable. So with that, let's take a look at his build. So we have him sitting in 6 pieces of Impulse, 3 Impulse sets. We want more A2s and A3s out of him. For total Hydra stats, we're looking at the following. For Relic, we have him in a Molten Death Bell, once again to meet accuracy requirements. He is our Smite Brimstone Blessing champion for this composition. And for Masteries, we have the following. If you are curious, I do have a Mad Hatter guide available on my channel. Next up, we have Lydia the Deathsiren. I've got Lydia sitting in 9-piece Firrol, just for the most possible damage enabling from her. She already brings the decreased defense in the weekend. Firrol is just going to help my champions deal that much more damage. For total stats in Hydra, we are looking at the following. For Relic, I'm just using a Molten Death Bell just for other parts of the game to meet accuracy thresholds. For her Blessing, we're using, once again, Cruelty, so overlapping Bivald is going to be better. And then for her Masteries, we have the following. I do have a Lydia guide out on my channel if you'd like to see that. As for replacement champions, Lydia in this case, the most important thing that she's bringing is decreased defense and weaken. So if you don't have Lydia yet on your account, no big deal. I mean, if you happen to have a Sishia, for example, she does bring both of those along with HP Burns, which is also great in Hydra. Ugo also brings the decreased defense and block buffs. So then that could free up the slot for Firrol, since Mad Hatter also brings the weaken, so you'd still have both of those damage debuffs covered. All options that can be used to replace Lydia. For my block buffs champion of the composition, we have Firrol the Barkhorn. Now, Firrol also brings some Perfect Veil, and he also brings some good damage boost through his passive. So if you're looking to replace particular parts of his kit, it's going to depend on which one you're going to be missing on your team. If you're missing block buffs, you can replace Firrol with Lammasu, for example, if you have her, or Ugo, another good option. And the decreased defense Ugo brings could potentially free up Lydia's slot as well. Now, if you're looking to replace him for the Perfect Veil, a few options out there. You can bring Duchess, for example, or you can bring Quargan the Crowned, who's a good epic that also brings Perfect Veil for your team. Now, in terms of the build, we have him sitting in 9-piece protection. For total stats, we have him in the following in Hydra battles. We have him with a Gilded Dragonstone as the relic. Also using a Brimstone Blessing in this case, but we have Mad Hatter with a higher one. And finally, for my Masteries, we have the following. Now, I do have a Firrol guide out on my channel as well, if you'd like to see that. And finally, we have Lady Mikage. Now, Lady Mikage is not really serving any crucial function on this team. We do not have any need to carry that shield buff all the way through to the end of the fight as we do with Infinity Shield composition, so her buff extension, just like with Mad Hatter, is not strictly necessary. I do, however, like her for consistency. She does bring increased debuff duration on the heads, so that means decreased defense, weaken, and Hex stay up longer, and they're there when we are doing the A3s by Bivald, and then her A3 also helps break champions out of Devour and helps set up other heads for decapitation when we're ready to make those big hits with Titus's A2. So for consistency's sake, I like her on my Hydra teams. And in this case, we do have her built in 9-piece protection. She does bring 2 buffs and increased crit damage, specifically very nice for this composition. So she is appreciated for that. For total stats in Hydra, we have her with the following. Relic, nothing special. Molten Death Bell. For her Blessing, using Cruelty, but we already have a higher Cruelty user, so not really necessary for this composition. And finally, her Masteries. I do have a Lady Mikage guide on my channel if you're curious to see that. And in terms of replacing her, again, any champions really that you think would be valuable for the team. So I like her for all the reasons as already stated, but you can bring in another damage dealer here instead, or maybe another turn meter booster just to get more turns, more A2s from Titus, more A3s from Bivald. All of those are fine options. And there you have it, everybody, the No Infinity Shield Titus Hydra composition. If you liked today's video, please consider liking and subscribing for more content in the future. Let me know down in the comments below if there's any other showcases or guides that you'd like to see on the channel. Thank you for watching today's video. Thank you for your time. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.